Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. And as many of you know, the Austin Technology Council has been around for 33 years. We were founded as the Austin Software Council with the idea of bringing the community together and helping to build the ecosystem. Well, fast forward over 3 decades, it's time again to bring the community together. We no longer need to build an ecosystem, but we need to keep it thriving. And the bigger we get, the easier it is to fall into silos of like medtech and fintech and a whole bunch of different cliques. That's not good for the long-term growth of our town. And so ATC is reinventing itself to become more relevant to you, the Austin tech community, as we move forward. But here's the secret. We can't do it without you. We have to be a grassroots organization, which means we need leadership from real leaders. And here's the thing about real leaders. Real leaders show up in the community. They don't lead by drinking bourbon by their pool. They show up. ATC is inviting you to pull up a chair to our table or any of the other business nonprofits that are serving Austin. Make sure that you're having your voice heard somewhere. Anyway, we started this podcast about 2.5 years ago so that we could interview a variety of people who are working in and around tech to help make sure that Austin is thriving. And today I'm excited because we have with us Mat Kordell. Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Tom?
Great. And for those of you who don't know Matt, he is the co-founder and COO of CyberStreams. We're going to learn a lot more about CyberStreams before we're done today. But here's the thing. At his soul, at his heart, at his base level, Matt is an entrepreneur. He loves the whole idea of technology and growing things. And he just, if you could see him right now on the video I'm watching him, he has technology things flashing all over the behind him. He is all about tech. But he's not one of these entrepreneurs who's just about making money. Matt is a husband and a father of 4. And not just 4, they're 4 little kids, like ages 2 through 7. So he is busy raising a family and he is busy growing a company. He relocated his family to Austin, Texas in 2020 in order to have a great place for he and his wife to raise their kids, but also to expand his company into this market. So, Matt, let's jump right in. How'd you become an entrepreneur? Let's go in the Wayback Machine. What got you excited about tech? What got you excited about entrepreneurship?
I started in kind of internal IT as an IT. I went very quickly from a help desk rep person to an IT manager for a couple organizations. One of those organizations was a IT consulting firm of ours. And, after a couple of years there as their IT manager, and I started to become a consultant for them, they were looking to get into managed support. And managed support is something that I had a passion for since my time as just an IT manager for business. And I always kind of felt like the tools out here that allow you to expand your reach and your impact, like it's too easy for one small company. Like you could bring this service to many companies. So when they looked to do that, I raised my hand and said, I'd like to lead that. So as an entrepreneur, I built an MSP with that company. When the time was right, I got out of that and I met somebody at a ConnectWise user group meeting named David Henderson, who is now my business partner. And he was looking to do the same thing at another VAR. So I helped him do that until one day, a guy named Todd Winders that I met at a Dell MSP event, he called me out of the blue 6 months after we met and said, hey, you know anybody who wants to buy a managed service provider? And my first response was, yeah, I'll bring that deal to my CEO. And my second response was, hey, you've been wanting to do this thing for a while. Why don't you look into buying it yourself? So I did. And a lot of things really lined up, but ultimately, long story short, ended up looping David Henderson in to do this with me. And so we acquired Apex Northwest Technologies, rebranded as the Altus Group, which later we would rebrand as CyberStreams because it's a much better name. And that was our second acquisition. And now we're here. So it's just really, it started as a passion and the opportunity presented itself and I jumped.
I love the fact that you started at the help desk because I love people. It's the old saying of like he started in the mailroom, right? It's all those stories of people who've grown up in business who started at the very basic level. So I love that. But even more importantly, you talked about meeting your business partner and about finding the person who asked you about buying the company. by going to networking events and participating in organizations. Anybody who knows me knows I'm always ringing the bell that we need to stop thinking, oh, we don't have to go to the Austin Technology Council or the Chamber of Commerce or Austin Women in Technology or any of these other groups because we're all digitally connected. I say it over and over. A like, a link, a share, and a follow is not going to bring you the type of opportunities as showing up in person. So what was the reason that you were going to those types of events? I mean, you didn't go saying, I hope I meet my future co-founder today. Why were you participating in those two different types of meetings where you met those people?
Man, it's such a pertinent question to my story because, I mentioned we had done 2 acquisitions. The first one was Apex Northwest Technologies. The second was CyberStreams, and we've actually done 3. The third one was DataWorks Consulting in Newcastle, Washington, and and all 3 of those came through being a part of the community. It came from people knocking on our door, one way or another, having an opportunity present itself, and and being in the right place at the right time. So, like, I know about my business that when I go out in the broader community, like, we've done in 7 years what many entrepreneurs spend 20 years doing. And it is not, I promise you, because we are significantly better business people. Maybe we're in the top 50th percentile, sure. But the real secret is just that we get out there, we know people, we know the lay of the land, we participate in industry benchmarking, out of industry peer groups, and organizations like the Austin Technology Council. I mean, the CEO Summit a couple of years ago just made such an impact on me. There were a couple of takeaways that still roll around in my head every time. And it's just, if you don't, opportunity comes through people. And, it's not too often that your outbound cold email is going to spur, immense opportunity. And so even for an introvert like me, I just forced myself to be out there getting to know people because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it.
I mean, you're hitting on, my swan song. That's what I talk about all the time. But here's the thing. So many younger entrepreneurs around your age or even a little bit younger, they're looking to sort of the people at the next level, 2, 3 levels up. And they're like, well, they don't go to things, so I don't need to go to things. And they don't get this message that those people who are super successful, who are in their 50s, probably started out by showing up in the community and finding mentors and finding people and finding their co-founders. How do we get the message to younger entrepreneurs that this is the lifeblood of their future?
Yeah, I mean, the younger you are, you've got to take advantage of your opportunity to do as much as possible, right? So in your 20s, more often than not, you're not married, you don't have kids. You've got the option between going and partying or doing the work that needs to be done, right? In your 30s, that starts to change a little bit, and so on. But so I would say get out there and network and socialize and get at these events as much as possible when you're younger. Because you know what? When I've been doing these events for 20, 30 years, I'll probably slow it down too. But that's not because I'm going to stop doing the events. That's because I figured out which ones work and where my people are. And so I'll just trim it down to those ones that are really effective.
And that really is something that's true, is you got to figure out you're going to the right places. And the only way you figure that out is you got to go to a lot of places and figure out where the wrong ones are. And that's an individual type thing. So in 2020, you and your wife moved here. And So you split your headquarters. Your co-founder is in the Seattle area. And you said, hey, I'm going to move to Austin. Now you have a whole staff going on in the Austin area. What was it like to actually move and break apart from your co-founder physically in locale? What's that been like for you as an individual, for your relationship with your co-founder, for the company in general? And because I assume most of that move was lifestyle for you and your wife. So how did it affect the company?
Yeah, I have to say he did not like my suggestion when I first suggested that we were going to move to Austin. But it's one of those things, and maybe this is just the entrepreneurial spirit, but I've got one chance at this, right? And I've wanted to live where the sun shined for quite a long time.
Seattle was not that place.
Seattle is not that place. And so the day my wife said she was ready to go, she could see us making the move. I've picked up a little bit of sales in my day, and I know that you got to take the clothes and you got to deliver before that yes turns into a no. So we got moving and we did, and The truth is I was only in the office maybe 2% of the time anyway. I was just working from my home in Kent with our office in Tukwila, which for anybody listening, that's about a 12, 15 mile distance. This is right around the corner. But we've always been kind of a virtual company anyway. The office is there for the purpose of doing some specific work, for the purpose of having conference meetings and those things. And at this time, we're well on this Skype for Business, video conferencing and phone system and all that. So it was really more taking away the possibility for me to be in person. And that caused a discomfort that took a little getting over, but now it works great.
Nice. And having the two sort of central locations, that makes you look like a bigger company. How does it really impact the overall company?
Yeah, one of the things that comes out of this is just how there's a lot of similarities between Austin and Seattle. When it comes to just a northern city and a southern city, there's a lot of similarities between the two. But at the same time, and especially as it relates to tech, right? There's just kind of booming tech in both places. But we also look at Austin as kind of a hedge, as it were, against economic change, as none of us knows where this is really going, but you can see Seattle tapering off kind of there's some big question marks as to how to deal with the challenges that Seattle has. And at the same time, you see Austin just booming and growing, and we wanted to be a part of that, and we wanted to have a presence in kind of that up and coming market.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about the company. Tell us about what the company does, who your ideal client is, and why do you make a difference?
Right. So the company, CyberStreams, like I say, we started out as the Altus Group, which was a name of convenience. We went through probably 250 domain names before we found one that was available. And then when we acquired the company CyberStreams, that was a much better name. So we just rebranded. And, what do we do? We become your IT department. So our tagline is your neighborhood IT department. We have a strong regional focus, Seattle area based companies, Austin area based companies. We have the capability to service anywhere, but we really focus our attention on finding clients in those areas. And when they hire us, we become their IT department. So we do all of the things that you would expect your IT department to do. And just like any IT department, there's some things that they're kind of technology, but they maybe fall out of the scope of your IT department. And so we have those trusted relationships and resources to bring really anything you might need as it relates to technology to bear when it comes to running and operating your business. Our target market, our customer profile, is that we're up in Seattle. We have a lot of manufacturing and aerospace. Obviously, that's a hub for Boeing. Outside of that, we have an ability to execute in private education, nonprofit, and obviously, and actually, oddly, just kind of pet-related nonprofits. So, whether that be humane societies or other, pet-related organizations.
So what size company? I mean, obviously, giant companies are going to have an IT department. One-person shops probably don't need much of an IT department. Who is your ideal client?
So you start to get to a point in your business where you need a service provider around 10 to 15 people. You need somebody to help you turn it from individual workers into a real business environment. We come in right around 20. Is our minimum. We have a handful that are lower than that, but it's usually a special circumstance. We go up to about 350 seats.
Wow.
And, we had an experience recently where we closed a very large client. It was a couple of years ago, and they were, they had their IT people were all quitting. Just every other month, somebody was quitting, and they had 11 IT people. And by the time they finally hired us, 30 days into the contract, the last guy quit. So so in that moment, we swam upstream in a big way and had to say, well, what do we do in a world where what would normally be a co-managed environment where we come in and we make the IT department rock stars? We find out where they don't like to execute or where they're not as capable. And we come in and run beside them and really just deliver in those areas. But as the IT people kept leaving, it just left us having a larger and larger scope to execute on.
So as you work with the bigger and bigger, bigger companies, how does that change your company?
How does that change our company? Paul Dipple is a big name in our industry. I think he retired at this point, at least from his organization that he was running, Service Leadership. But he used to talk about service factories. You can't have a service factory for a 20-person client that is the same for a 350-person client, because the politics are different, the motivations are different, the needs are different. And so we had to, in that instance, we had to build a new service factory. So we effectively have two different ways of operating, depending on if you're about 100+ person environment versus a less than 100.
Nice. So what's the future for CyberStreams? Where do you see it going?
Well, I think as any good entrepreneur would say, we intend to take over the world, right? Where's the future for CyberStreams? We're growing a presence in Austin and the Austin metro area, really getting into some community and organization events and just making ourselves known. We've got 20 years in the Seattle area, so we're a known entity up there. And, our passion is just helping our customers to be able to get technology out of their way so they can do their jobs, and to do so in a way that is both secure without at the same time making it unusable, right? Which is just too common. We're going to secure things by way of unplugging it. Isn't a good option. And so we intend to do a lot more of what we do here.
Nice. So another question, kind of along those same lines, is I see it in all different types of industries. I see it in industries I worked in. I see it in things that I'm involved in. There are great services out there that companies need. But a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I can do it all myself, right? So that 20-person company, that 30-person company who's trying to Band-Aid it all together, what's the message you wish they all just heard? Because they think, why would I pay someone else to do it when we can Band-Aid it together? We're not ready for a CIO, but Mary's really good with tech, so we're going to make it work. What's your message for them?
Well, this is me. So I came from the help desk. I'm a doer. I like to have my hands on things. And now we're a 30-person-ish company. So rising above where I started to become that leader who knows how to delegate and who knows how to focus on core competencies and minimize distractions so that I can do what I need to do. That's the same thing for our clients. It's, I talk to literally CEOs who say, well, I know what I'm doing, I'll do it. And I'm like, don't you have better use of your time? Our services are relatively inexpensive compared to your time and your leadership team's time. And so that's the first case, is like, it's a business maturity conversation. It's it's time to elevate yourself so that you can get to your next level. And we're here to partner with you and help you do that. But beyond that, the truth is that cybersecurity and all these risky things, and I hate throwing FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I hate throwing that around. But we started seeing in this last year, everybody was talking about turn on MFA everywhere because it pretty much locks the bad guys out. It's like 100%. You turn on MFA and you're all good. Until like this last year, the bad guys figured out how to get past MFA so they can just walk through your front door anyway. And you're not, I promise, you're not on top of cybersecurity and all of those risks in the same way that somebody is like us, or even like a dedicated IT or cybersecurity staff who spends their days reading those stories and understanding those situations and making sure that you have the right, the right mitigations in place.
So Matt, you strike me as, I introduced you as sort of an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. You strike me as a guy who's been ambitious and really built this and kind of been like, I want to go there, I want to go there. What advice do you have for younger entrepreneurs? Austin's full of people working the help desk or working in tech sales or working in some other thing who are like, I want to have my own business. I mean, entrepreneurship runs in the blood of Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for that young 20-something who is like young Matt?
Yeah, I mean, get started. That's it. Get started. And let me extrapolate a little bit from that is, you've got all these fears, all these things that hold you back. Assess your worst case scenario. My guess is it's not as bad as you think. Like, I bet your parents or one of your friends has a couch that you could crash on if you ended up in a real bad way. I know that I had the dream, dare I say, calling. I knew what I was supposed to do since I was 21. And it took me until nearly my 30s to get started. And so I burnt a lot of time where I didn't have kids. I didn't have, I mean, I had a wife, but we were both really career focused. I had all the time and energy in the world to go do this thing. But I didn't. And I know that I could have done so much more. And also I would have felt so much more fulfilled just because I knew this was something I was going to do. So I'd say, when you know that that's what you want to do, just go do it. And yeah, you might need to keep a job for a while. You might need to do what you want to do, or at least get started on the business planning and getting everything in place to do that. You probably even get your first 1, 2, 3 customers while you're working a job to pay the bills. But if you don't start now, it's never going to get easier.
Nice. So let's shift this talk over to Austin, Texas, right? You made the decision to come here. First of all, besides just we have more sun than Seattle, why'd you choose Austin?
So, like I said, there's a lot of similarities to Seattle. And so we kind of like the Seattle scene. I mean, I've got these guitars hanging behind me that nobody can see, but and there's a few more musical instruments around the room here. And I really like the music scene in Seattle. That's kind of where I grew up until I knew that I was going to start an IT business. I was in bands, and I thought that my career was going to be a rock star. And so when we were looking for places with sun shining to live, and California wasn't really on our agenda, Austin really stood out as one of a handful of places, but really the best of a handful of places that we could land.
Well, certainly when we look at like breakout cities, I mean, you got to take like New York and the Silicon Valley and maybe even Boston and Los Angeles out of the equation a little bit. But when we look at the cities that have sort of broke out in tech, Seattle was there early with Microsoft and Amazon and some other things. But Austin's really the poster child for a city that really figured out how to do it. And some of it was by design. And then some of it was, we just had a perfect storm of things. I do a speech called The History of Austin Tech, because a lot of people who've lived here 3, 4, 5 years really have no idea. They just say, Austin's booming, I'm coming there. But they don't know that this goes back to the 1960s, 70s, and 80s when the foundation was all laid that we've built upon. And so Austin was sort of the poster child for this breakout, let's change the whole city around tech type thing. However, there's other places that are starting to get success and starting to do that now. So when you look at Austin, what do you think we're doing right? What do you think we're doing wrong as a tech ecosystem?
Well, there's definitely a gravity in Austin. I mean, and that's part of what, brought us here is, I imagine what started that gravity was probably regulatory in nature and getting the right kind of foothold established.
Yeah, that one of the 10 pillars is we're a business friendly state and sometimes even a business friendly city. So it's the combination. There's 10 different reasons I think we're the perfect storm, but one of them is that.
Right. And me being new here, I'm just kind of surmising because I don't know that history, but I do know that, I started out when I was actually in that help desk role. I was leading our Spice Core, which is a user group for Spiceworks, which is a company here in Texas, in Austin. And I had come down a few times to visit them, to go to conferences, and just to drive around and see Apple and Samsung and Cisco and just everybody that, and now the giant building with the Google, right? See all these companies and to just know that this has that gravity and that being here for us who are not just a community MSP, but we're really passionate about what we do. It seemed a creative in nature.
So what do you think we're not doing well? Everybody wants to avoid that question. What does Austin have to watch out for?
I don't want to be rude to the other cities I might compare them to.
Call it City X.
Yeah, City X. There's a handful of cities out there that don't control kind of I guess don't have a good answer for whatever it be, the drugs, the crime, the homelessness. And I'm not saying that's easy, not my problem. I'm blessed to not have to deal with those situations. But City X, and you go downtown to see a show, and maybe the downtown smells like a porta potty, right? So I hope for Austin. It's a beautiful city. It's got the sun shining on it. Everything is great, and I just hope it stays that way.
Well, you bring up a really great point that I talk about all the time, and I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. And that is, as we become a bigger city, we get a lot of the positives that come with being a big city. Obviously, the Valley in New York and Los Angeles and Boston, there's a lot of good things that come with a big city. But we also bring along some of those negative things. And there's a whole list of them to which you've said. But here's what I believe. I think we have a brain trust in Austin, and we're still small enough where that brain trust can come together, where these are things we should be talking about. What does Austin need to be doing? And this is where I challenge people all the time, is what are we doing not just to attract the next multinational company or to help foster the next couple of startups that are going to become the next Dell or Indeed or whoever, but what are we doing to ensure? Because if you look at these brilliant entrepreneurs who are running these brilliant companies in Austin, from companies of your size to companies that are on, the New York Stock Exchange, what are those minds doing to say, let's make Austin special 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And I tell everybody all the time, the decisions that our tech leaders are making today impact that 2-year-old girl, maybe your daughter, who wants to be an entrepreneur and starts her business in 2055. The decisions we make today impact her company. And so we need to be watching out for those things. So you bring up a point that I care a lot about.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Have you heard the term Boom 2040?
I have not.
After I heard it the first time, I really haven't been able to find anybody who knew it. But when I first moved down here, I was hanging out at a local park with the kids, and we started playing some basketball. And the guy that we were shooting hoops with says, starts telling me how passionate he is about the city. It's just such a great place to live, and the economy is booming, and it's all part of this master plan. And the master plan is called Boom 2040. The goal was to kind of get this technology gravity and to really be the next Silicon Valley by 2040. I didn't move here for that reason, but when I heard that on the basketball court, I was like, wow, what a cool place to live. It's unfortunate that I don't know where he got that from, but I haven't been able to find somebody who recognizes it.
I do know that Opportunity Austin has a long-term plan, and a couple of other groups have a long-term plan. But the problem is, if you don't know that group, you don't know that plan. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do with Austin Technology Council is I don't need our group to own anything. We don't need to be the center of the universe. If somebody tries to own everything, then they don't own anything. But I want Austin Technology Council to be a thread that runs through the community. Everybody who's trying to help grow us from now till 2040, 2050 and beyond, I want to make sure we know what they're doing. And there's sort of a central place where, we have that thread that runs through. Because here's the thing, once in a while, we really as a community need to pull on that thread and bring everybody together to the table. And that's what we're trying to do as we move into the next phase of ATC. Well, Matt, as we wrap up this interview, what final words of advice do you want to give to the people who are listening to the show?
Yeah, final words of advice. Maybe I'll just double down on what I said we're seeing for this last year. Like, hey, if in your business, if you're running things yourself, if you've got somebody good in tech, and I don't mean for this to be a pitch, call somebody, because where we thought that everybody thought that the magic bullet was MFA, just turn on MFA everywhere and you're safe. We have become very surprised to find that the bad guys are walking right through that door. So if you think that you're holding it together, and you think that you've got somebody techie on staff, I would encourage you, talk to somebody, who has an outside perspective, who can help you to make sure that you've got all your doors properly locked and your mitigations in place.
Nice. Well, Mat Kordell, it's been a delight to have you here on Austin Tech Connect. If somebody's trying to find you to learn more about you or CyberStreams, where can they do that?
www.cyberstreams.com. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. So that's Matt with one T. Kordell is Kordell.
Nice. Matt with one T. I like that because I'm Thom, Thom.
There we go.
Gotta like that. All right. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. I say it all the time. If it wasn't for you, the audience, why would we do the show? But I'll tell you what, we need to grow this audience again. We need you to be evangelists and tell people, hey, there's a podcast out there where they're interviewing some really cool people who are doing really cool things right here in Austin. And we all need to be connected. That's why we call it Austin Tech Connect. We're going to be back every single week with more interviews with people just as cool as Matt. I know you're thinking, what? How is that possible? But we always seem to find somebody just as cool every single time. And is your company supporting the Austin Technology Council? I'll tell you what, we're a little nonprofit. We can't do it if the community doesn't support us. And there's ways to support us by just showing up. There's ways to support us with a little bit of money, and there's ways to support us with a little bit more money. And we'll take all of those. But if none of those, just be an evangelist. Go tell people we exist and that the stuff we're doing is good for the community. We'll see you back here next week.